Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed with DrPND, where we help you reclaim your health with tips, tools, and resources to live your most optimal and vibrant life. Here's your host, DrPND.
Hello and welcome to Your Health Reclaimed. This is your host, DrPND, and today we're going to talk about adrenal health. I get a lot of questions asked regarding the topic. It's a pretty popular topic, and I wanted to give some kind of bottom line, scenarios and explanation of how you can help to address and begin to heal your adrenal glands. So the thing that I'm not going to go into is in great detail what they are, what they do, what hormones exactly being released with great detail, anything like that. I just really wanted to give a basic understanding and some applicable points that you guys can begin to implement, pretty much immediately. So the adrenal glands are obviously are small little organs that are on top of the kidneys, and they are part of the hypothalamic pituitary thyroid adrenal axis, or what's called the HPTA axis. And these are comprised of very complex systems of hormones and feedback mechanisms that ultimately coordinate physiological response to stress. Okay, this is what it boils down to. When you have any kind of adrenal dysfunction, and there's two types, there's hyper responsiveness and hypo responsiveness. We're going to talk about these. Due to prolonged stressors, you're gonna get dysfunction. Okay, that's ultimately what's going to happen. So the things that cause dysfunction in the adrenal glands in our society is psychological stress. That is hands down the biggest aspect that I see that really pushes people over. Now, whether from some kind of traumatic event, struggling from grief, from a loss of a loved one, to major stress life events such as losing jobs, divorces, separations, major moves, and so forth. Or just the daily grind of constant financial stresses, familial conflicts, just a combination of most people is really a lot of combination of all of the above that I mentioned. And the majority of the stress is that where it comes from. Now, we're not talking about any kind of medical diagnosable diseases such as Addison or Wilson's disease. We're just talking about, the stress response, people that are, they're stressed out, they're not feeling well, they're not doing well. And the adrenals, again, they're, part of the stress response organs, and they get taxed. They get, to the point they get dysfunctional. Now, physiological factors obviously play a role to some point or another. And that is mostly due to our, lifestyle factors of, physical factors such as, chemicals in our food system, chemicals in our, in our living daily environment, such as, prolonged exposure of toxins, from our food supply, from, like I said, from, skincare, from just daily living, and also from endogenous toxicity, which is produced from our metabolism, especially when we have a dysregulated gastrointestinal system dysfunction, something with going on with the GI. So you definitely have the physical aspect of strain for the adrenals, such as poor food supply, like I said, chemicals. People eat obviously overly processed food all the time, or very often, alcohol consumption, tobacco consumption, all those things ultimately damage the body as a whole, and the adrenals ultimately are part of the body, obviously, so that they get hit as well. But stress from daily living and situations is really the biggest damage that people get. I know a lot of people talk about heavy metals, and again, toxicity and environmental pollutants and stuff like that, and they can, they definitely do play a role, but the major hits are definitely psychological triggers, from life, which some of them are in our control, and some of them are beyond our control. So when it comes to adrenal health, there are two scenarios that take place. When the adrenal glands gets stressed out, first they're going to try to overcompensate and obviously deal with the stressors, and they go in what is called a hyper-responsiveness, okay, or hyper-responsive state. This is when the hormones that the adrenals produce, such as the glucocorticoids, which is cortisol and cortisone, and the catecholamines, which are the epinephrine or norepinephrine, get overly produced, and they're highly elevated, and they stay elevated chronically for persistent period of time. After that stage, when the body's unable to deal with that stress, you go into what's called a hypo-responsive state, where you have a dysregulation and downregulation of the adrenal function, and those hormones actually become exhausted and start seeing lower. So we're going to talk about the hyper-responsive and then the hypo-responsive. It is much easier to establish balance and bring the adrenals to homeostasis and heal them when you're into the hyper-responsive state. This is when the stress is obviously mounting up, and the body is still actively trying to overcompensate that stress and deal with the stress. And when it comes to a point it's unable to, again, it starts to shift down into a hypo state. So to address hyper-responsiveness, we have to mitigate the external stressors immediately, first and foremost, through lifestyle and behavior modifications. I know people like a quick fix. Perhaps you guys are hoping that I'll give you some supplement names and some nutrients that you can take and be on your merry way. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. And as I said from the very get-go in this podcast, I will always speak transparently and I always speak the truth, even though if you might not like it or perhaps it's not popular, but I owe you that. So I'm telling you what works. Is anybody telling you that you can take some awesome supplements or a combination of supplemental protocols and be on your merry way is not going to happen. We definitely will talk about supplements. There's definitely nutrients that support adrenal health and overall body health. But, if to address these issues, you have to address lifestyle and behavior. It's just a fact. Okay, what you think, what you do. So obviously, if you have a stressor, you have to either eliminate it or manage it by greatly decreasing it. I'll give you an example with exercise. I'll have clients that will come to me for different issues, and part of their lifestyle, which is obviously a good thing, is they'll do a lot of exercising, and that's great. But they're over-exercised. So they do CrossFit 3 to 5 times a week, then do cardio, then do other stuff. Then I'd like to, party on the weekend, have a good time, work, not sleep a lot. And initially, especially if they're having a good time living, people are not dying, there's no bad things are happening, they're making money. They're kind of living in the fast lane and they are having fun, a lot of positive things are happening. That stresses them out. That stresses the adrenals out, and they go into a hyper-responsive state, and they will eventually, without fail, burn out. So the first thing that I tell them to is, okay, you need to, lower the amount of exercise, volume, frequency, and intensity, okay, until we address that, and then from that we have to see what your physical limits are that you can handle stress from exercise, in this case, that do not throw you back into hyper-responsive state, basically overtraining. Another aspect is, people, they're people pleasers. So they try to please people and they don't say no to anything. They're the ones that sign up for everything. They take upon stuff. They have the mentality usually of, listen, it's easier for me to do it. Let me take care of it. I'll take care of it. I don't need any help. Those types of personalities, they get overwhelmed a lot very quickly. Some obviously more than others, but nonetheless, anybody, I don't care how tough they are, they're going to reach a breaking point. And that's where you see the hyper-responsiveness. So these are, modifications in lifestyle and behavior that you have to consider. Only you can do that. So first thing you need to do is you need to take stock, okay? Do an inventory of what are your stressors in life. From there, divide them in two categories. One, there's nothing I can do about these right now, whatever that is. Okay, say for example, somebody died, you're going through grief, that's a substantial stress, depending how close that person was to you, how much love you had for that person. The grief can vary greatly. Nothing you can do about that. Just get support, obviously, if you need to, from a good counselor, from good psychologist. I'm sorry, not psychiatrist, psychologist, and manage it, and knowing that the grief cycle will pass. It will play its role. You just have to support it and get it through. So that's obviously something that you really have a control. You can reverse time. From there, if the stressor is something that, again, it's out of your control, then you just let it go. Put it on one side. Nothing I can do about this. The other list is going to be, what can I do with these things that I have control over? And from there, you can make another list, and that list can be the things that I have control over to some point, which ones can I completely eliminate and have full control over, and I can address immediately or relatively soon. And the other list is like, I can't directly control those 100%, but at least I can manage them very well. So familiar conflicts, a big one that I see. People hurting people, and loved ones. Obviously, family hurts the most. So with them, I have people putting very strong boundaries, or completely cut people out of their lives, letting them know that if they need them for emergency, they're there. But if in the meantime, we have nothing to do with each other, because you just will not respect my boundaries. Again, that's something very personal, but I'm just giving you examples. These are stressors that have to be addressed, or to the best way possible. Behavior is another thing. That's a tough one, because we have ingrained behavioral patterns that a lot of times are faulty. So you really need to try to focus on positive self-talk, positive imagery. One thing from a practical standpoint that I'll tell you works really well, and something that used to affect me, is what is it that you're actually exposing yourself to on a daily basis? And that's going to come from media and social media, in your environment in general. Are you mindlessly scrolling through Facebook or any of those social medias? First of all, the scrolling in itself is called anytime you're watching anything, it's called rapid frame of reference. You're getting exposed to some life events or something that is presented to you in a very brief, very short, intense period of time that is not technically normal when you're living through real life. So that's called a rapid frame of reference, and that stresses the brain out. It just, some people more, some people less, but nonetheless, it does. So stop that. That mindless scrolling, or if it's even mindful scrolling, trying to learn something, it's overwhelming, especially at this point if you have adrenal issues. That has to go. If what you're doing, watching and scrolling to mindlessly, is something negative, such as paying attention to the wars or to the calamities of the world, or to who got shot, stabbed, beat, raped, whatever it might have been, all these are very negative, very destructive aspects that you're putting into your brain that the brain has to process, and that does, to a point, alter and change reality. That's why you see people living and functioning in the same town, same neighborhood, same socioeconomic status, and you have people that are funny, joyful, jovial in general, and taking things lightly, and then you have the same person with the same surroundings. That is completely paranoid. And I'm not talking about schizophrenia or some kind of actually diagnosable psychological disease, but they're negative. They're your typical Debbie Downers, negative Nellies. They look at the world from hormones. They go to the grocery store, and they might live in a very wealthy, beautiful, safe neighborhood that most of the world would probably kill to live there. But every time they go to the grocery store, it's like a war zone. Like they think, okay, who's going to mug me? Who's going to attack me? Who's going to look at me bad? Who's going to say something bad about me? It's constantly. So they have the same exact physical surrounding in reality, but how they perceive it is completely different. And that constant negativity is conditioned. There's not something that, they were born with. That's obviously, they might have trauma as a child. Obviously, that's something that has to be addressed. But in general, if you see how people change, is what they put daily into their minds. If you watch funny movies, like funny animal videos or funny fails or the America's Funniest Videos, watch, a useful facts about history, about, productive things like, cooking, gardening, whatever your hobby might be. All these are healthy, good stuff that you can easily watch and put into your mind. They're not going to affect you, as opposed to if you're watching the news and, who got killed, where there's war, what is the next negative bad thing that happened, because that does load your brain with negativity, that it does change the perception. And what ultimately happens, you go into what's called a complete sympathetic nervous system dominance, and you're in what they call the fight or flight response state all the time. And when that happens, the body starts to break down long term. Again, that's typical point of stress. And you ask any emergency room physician who's worked there a long time, they're going to tell you the high rate of people who come with physical symptoms, like, for example, having a heart attack. They think they're having a heart attack. That is nothing but psychological stress driven. And either cause the heart attack, or they never even have a heart attack. They just think they're having a heart attack, or something is hurting, and migraines, headaches, and so forth. So negativity massively hurts your body on all levels. But in this case, we're talking about adrenal glands. So be mindful of what you expose your mind to. Stop watching the news. Stop, change the algorithms or the preference on your social media feeds of what it feeds you. If you watch war and negativity and even politics and whatever other things that people watch, negative, that's what's going to keep getting fed in you. These algorithms, that's what they're designed to do. So whatever your interests are, that's what they're going to keep putting in your face. So start to change that. I had to do that on YouTube, a few times, and I go by not interested, or I'll click in, do not show this anymore, whatever the case be. And I start to like and select videos that are good and positive and building, whatever that might be. So really, I cannot emphasize how important this is, because if you think you're going to keep living the way you're living, not sleeping, stressing out, reacting all the time, watching negative, media and social media, and then take a supplement, a little bit of magnesium, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to be, you're wasting your time. So I'm telling you again, true and bottom line answers that really work. And that is, you need to address the stress in your behavior patterns. It's not easy to do, but it can be done. And if you're persistent, you will find a way. If you need help, get a good, life coach. Go see a good counselor, or both. So addressing the stress is huge. That is just absolutely. That goes in hand in addressing the sleep. I cannot tell you how vital sleep is. I know sleep has been talked to death, literally, so I'm not going to go into that. But you need to address the quality and the quantity of your sleep. Okay. There are many resources out there. It's actually really simple. It just, again, boils down to behaviors. And one of the things is watching screens at night, especially violence, news, negativity, and you going to bed with that. Okay. As opposed to, watching or reading, even better, something taken on the screens completely, and reading something beneficial and healthy and positive. Okay. It can be comedy, it can be fun, it can be something that, romantic novel. It really doesn't matter. It just makes the difference, all the difference, really. So address the sleep. Okay. When it comes to hyper function, okay, going back to now, what can we do? Okay. So diet is anything. You're going to hear me say this over and over again. That is the fundamental, supreme, foundational basis that if it's not addressed, nothing else is going to really change. I don't care what you do. Diet. What diet are we talking about? Okay, so when it comes to adrenal health, whether it's hyper or hypo, the worst you can do is be on a ketogenic diet or a low, or let alone very low carbohydrate diet. You want to eat healthy, unprocessed, unrefined sources of starch, such as organic white steamed rice, sweet potatoes, yams, any kind of form of potatoes, basically any tubers, okay, that are out there. I mean, there's at least 15 varieties that you walk into the store, Whole Foods, Sprouts, it says an insane amount. Yeah, obviously things like, quinoa and millet, buckwheat, it doesn't matter. Anything there's a low glycemic, complex, whole food, nutrient dense starch. Okay. I'll keep that 30 to 40% of my daily calories. Okay. When you deal with stress, the last thing you want to start doing is cutting out carbohydrates. Okay. Carbohydrates are very much needed for thyroid and adrenal glands, which those two are extremely connected. Next one podcast that I'm actually going to do is going to be on thyroid health. So this hinges on what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so remember that. But carbohydrates. Second, healthy proteins, high quality, organic, pasture raised sources of protein, or if it's fish, obviously wild caught, safe, low heavy metal, low toxic fish. Okay. Things like anchovies, sardines, herring, mackerel, obviously wild caught salmon, high quality cod. These are really good forms of protein that from a seafood stand. Shellfish perfectly fine. Again, it's just where is the sourcing from? Is the shrimp or the scallop sourced from a clean environment? That's how you have to pay more attention to that. So the sourcing has to be important. When it comes to meats, are they grass-fed, pasture-raised, like organic? Massive difference. But these high-quality food protein sources are very important. The third is healthy fats, and healthy fats again from organic, pasture-raised eggs. Don't separate the yolk. The yolk is where really the nutrition is. Grass-fed organic butter, ghee. True high quality avocado oil. Avocado oil is very bastardized and very, imitated and of low quality a lot of times because of its popularity. Coconut butter, coconut oil, again, virgin, unrefined, organic. First cold pressed organic olive oil from a single origin. Very important. Okay, that's another thing. Obviously, organic grass-fed beef tallow. But if you're eating something like salmon or wild-caught salmon, you have a lot of healthy fats in there. Eggs, a lot of healthy fats in there. When you eat organic grass-fed beef, don't buy the 95, 96, 97 lean. Get something like 85 to 90. So there's some good healthy fats in there. Ultimately, when it comes to adrenal health, you want to have high nutrient dense foods, eliminate processed foods, especially sugars. Okay. And the meals need to be well balanced. Like I said, the meal should have a good, healthy starch, high quality protein, animal based protein, and also healthy fats. You can have obviously a lot of vegetables. That's a no brainer. The question is going to be with the vegetables, do you have digestive issues and can you actually digest fiber? Does fiber bother you? So if you're eating a lot of healthy stuff like broccoli, cauliflower, green beans, asparagus, any vegetables really, which are great in themselves, if they're bloating you, if they're causing distension and gas and bloat and other GI issues, that means you're not ready for those. That means you have digestive problems you have to address because they just are going to add problems. So the vegetables are a staple. That's a given. The question is, can your body handle it? If not a problem. But again, regardless, healthy starch, high quality protein, high nutritious fats. That also, one, lowers and stabilizes blood sugar and lowers insulin response. And then eventually that'll cause to reverse, if you have insulin resistance, which most people do, that too will cause that insulin resistance to be reversed and increase insulin sensitivity. So when you also combine healthy carbs, fats, and proteins, that lowers the total glycemic load of the meal as well. Okay, so it's just good on all levels. So remember, healthy fats, healthy proteins, healthy carbs. Do not bring carbohydrates less than 30%. I'll go like 40, if not even 50%. You just have to see for yourself how you do of healthy starches and have carbohydrates at every meal. Okay. If you take out processed food, refined food, sugars, the chemicals, and all that garbage, you're not going to get fat from carbohydrates. This is a very big misconception. Okay, you need for long-term health healthy carbohydrates that are balanced for you. Some people do need more, some people need less. But I can tell you right now from experience, if you have adrenal issues, nothing less than 30% of your total caloric intake should come from healthy carbohydrates. You should not lower that, less than that. I found usually the 40 to 50% of caloric intake based on your needs per day is what is good. And again, if you're eating wholesome, nutritious, organic foods, you're not going to have you don't have to have details of exactly the macronutrient count. Just experiment and see what your body will tell you. So that's the nutrition. That is the food. You don't address that, you're not addressing anything. So if you think you're gonna sleep better and take some supplements and still have your alcohol, still have your processed foods, the amount of caffeine that you're ingesting every day, and heal your adrenal glands, is not going to happen. Which brings me to the next topic. Alcohol has to go, or at least majority of it drastically has to be reduced. That's going to prevent full healing. Another thing is if you're consuming caffeine, I don't care what kind of caffeine throughout the day, that has to be drastically reduced, better yet, eliminated. Okay, because anytime you consume caffeine, you are stressing your adrenal glands. You're asking to work more. Somebody who is a healthy, normal person, not a problem at all. I mean, as long as they're keeping caffeine within the healthy limits for themselves. And whatever that might be, it varies person to person. But if you're having a cup or 2 cups, coffee in the morning, and maybe another cup like mid-morning, late morning, that's fine usually. Depends, but that's fine. But anything above that, no. Another thing is stop drinking conventional coffee. Conventional coffee is loaded with herbicides and pesticides and fungicides. That's one of the most grown crops in the world. In inorganic coffee, conventional coffee, going conventional ways, are loaded with chemicals that do harm your endocrine glands, which the adrenals are part of that. Switch to organic coffee. Better yet, switch to green tea temporarily, organic green tea. Again, nothing past 12 noon. The best case scenario, get off of caffeine completely. And I mean completely for the time being while you're healing your adrenal glands. I understand that's tough to do, so I'm just giving you options, and in reality, choice is yours what you want to do. So we have the diet, we have the alcohol elimination, you definitely have the caffeine reduction, or even better yet, elimination. And now we're going to talk about supplements. First of all, before I get to supplements, real quick, don't assume you have hyper or hypoadrenals or any kind of adrenal stress, unless, and I'm talking about the true sense and true definition of it, unless you do test. Don't guess, test. Best test to get that is that we use is the adrenal stress index test, is the SII, and there's the 4-point salivary cortisol test. Okay, very simple, very effective, very accurate. Another test that I use in conjunction with that, depending, is a organic acid profile test, which looks for the central nervous system, neurotransmitters. It looks at vitamins, minerals, and a lot of different metabolites that are part of many aspects. But in this case, be able to really assess and diagnose a dysfunction in the adrenal glands. So these 2 tests are a staple, okay, to be able to get to truly know, one, if you really truly have any kind of dysregulation and stress in the adrenal glands, and if so, how bad is it? Which ultimately is going to be looked at. Do you have hypo or hyper? So the supplements that are essential, okay, are going to be B vitamins, a highly bioavailable, bioabsorbable B complex. I'll venture to say also add an additional liposomal liquid B6 to that. Okay. Magnesium, depending on the person, but nothing less than 600 grams a day, I can tell you right now. I have people that get dosed close to 15 to 1800 milligrams a day in divided doses, depending what they need. The 2 best forms of magnesium that work the best when it comes to adrenal dysregulation are magnesium malate and magnesium glycinate. Some call it biglycinate, but for chelate is pretty much the same thing. Glycinate and malate. Sometimes I'll also add orotate version of the magnesium. But malate and glycinate. I'll start minimum 600 milligrams divided twice a day, one in the morning, one before bed or right after dinner, for a week, a few days at least. And then if not, if you don't see relief, I'll go to 200 to 300 milligrams in addition to that dosing for about 3 to 4 days, and then another increase of 200 to 300 milligrams. You're going to find your dose that your body needs by increasing the dose between 200 and 300 milligrams every few days until you actually get a loose stool. That's a very basic, very simple indication that you kind of reach your limit. And at that point, go down about 200 or 300 milligrams. And generally speaking, this is where your levels are going to be. But people take usually a syrup or two, which can mount up to 150, sometimes even 400 milligrams a day. And they say, well, it made me a little bit feel better, or didn't feel anything at all. And then they'll say, well, it doesn't work. Well, supplements, one, you have to know how to use them. You have to, what kind to use, what dosing to use, what timing, what frequency to use. And also, you have to have access to high quality supplements, clinical grade, third party tested, nutraceutical grade supplements that, what we use. Yeah, because they're not regulated well, and everybody can sell anything they want. So people go up in Amazon and they go to the big box store and buy cheap crap, which a lot of times doesn't work well. And they wonder why. So do yourself a favor and buy quality products. They are going to be more expensive. You are going to get what you pay for. That's just a fact. Anything in life is a general principle that is very true. Yeah, you will get what you pay for. Or so this is something that, I just really want to make clear that a lot of people stumble upon. So we have the B complexes with additional B6, we have magnesium, and the other one is going to be vitamin C, preferably from a whole food source, very available and bioabsorbable, and that is something that is very important. Yeah, when you have adrenal stress, hyper or hypo, it is extremely important to have vitamin C. So B complexes, additional B6, magnesium, the right kinds. Remember malate, glycinate at least 600 milligrams starting per day in divided doses and going up to 300 milligrams every few days until you reach your level. And also vitamin C. Vitamin C, depending if it's a natural source, that can be dosed depending again on the person, but up to 1,200 to sometimes 2,500 milligrams a day in divided doses. It all depends. You just have to experiment. It has to be high quality. I use a product called C Plus Biofizz by Designs for Health, along with another product called Adrenal Cocktail by Jigsaw Health. These two I combine actually together for a very effective response. So from there, obviously, healthy fats are huge. So high quality, high potency, true triglyceride form fish oil is very, very helpful. Okay, with that as well. Polyphenols from organic fruits and vegetables, but particularly fruits, makes a big difference. That also helps a lot. And also getting supportive herbal products, which people call adaptogens. Okay, so let's see here. For a hyper-responsive, adrenal glands, you're going to have, like I said, high corticosteroids and also high catecholamines. What you want to do is, aside from the nutritional aspects we talked about, the supplements, you want to use supplements that help to calm you down. A lot of people go and start using adaptogens such as ginsengs and rhodiola and other stuff. This is the wrong thing to do because you actually, a lot of times, can actually backfire. These things are used in a hypo state. But the best things to do for a hyper state is calming things, such as taurine, L-theanine, okay, like we talked about extra B6, valerian root extract, phosphatidylserine, okay, lemon balm extract, passion flower extract, again, from certified organic, high quality herbal sources, okay. It can be a product. I use a product called Catecholamines. It's by Designs for Health that has all those I just mentioned. I also use a separate products depending on the dosing that I need to do with people. Each one separate from Gaia Herbs, very reputable herbal company. I have a couple other companies that I use. Depends what I need. But if you just want to cover something in general to kind of a blanket, the product from Designs for Health called Catecholamines is like is the one I like a lot and really does a good job for a lot of people. But these are the things that you want to include. Again, valerian root, passion flower, lemon balm, L-theanine, and taurine. That's why if you don't want to get off caffeine, it's best to switch from coffee to organic green tea, because green tea does have quite a bit of natural L-theanine. That's why you have those jitters that you get from coffee, or that heightened caffeine response, the hit that you get from pure strong coffee. So you want to relax the adrenals. You want to calm them down, the central nervous system. There's the whole goal behind that. There's also another product called liposomal neurocalm, and that I use from Designs for Health. And ultimately, this one has GABA, which is called gamma aminobutyric acid, along with L-theanine. It's a liposome that you put in a few times a day, especially if you have a stressful situation, and really just settles you down. It doesn't put you to sleep and make you tired, but it just centers you, calms you down. Very important. So when you have a hyper-responsive state, that's the support you want. The last thing you want to do is get stimulatory adaptogens like rhodiola or Panax ginseng, or any of the ginsengs, which are very, very high heat, very strong. That's something that is reserved when you get to the hypo state. So I hope you guys understand that principle, because it's very important. I do ask if there's any adaptogens directly that are good for a hyper state. Ashwagandha is very good for hyper state as well as a hypo state. So that's something that you can try and use, but again, it has to be high quality and pure. So this is something you have to play with. The supportive nutrients, aside from the ashwagandha, you can put in right away. Again, the herbal extracts of the passion flower, the lemon balm, the valerian root, these you can do right away. That's going to help. You just see how you feel. Let your body tell you. I cannot give specifics because I don't have testing. I don't have, obviously, medical history. I don't have any kind of feedback or metabolic assessments that I can advise. But these are just general stuff that we use and work really, really well. So this is the hyper state. When hyper state gets exhausted and the body gets exhausted, it starts to shift into a hypo state, and this is the hypofunctioning of the adrenal glands. That's when things really start to get bad. That's when you start having a lot of fatigue. That's when you're starting a lot of irritability, sleeping well at all. Sometimes actually people can't even get enough sleep, even if they are sleeping. And that can be, if it's severe enough, that can be a dangerous state to be in. Okay. So this is when all of your, catecholamines and the glucocorticosteroids that we talked about, like epinephrine, norepinephrine, your adrenals, basically cortisol, they get exhausted. They start to go down. The testing is all going to be the same. Again, adrenal stress index, which is the 4-point salivary cortisol test, and organic acid profile, which is a urine test. Okay, this is the same test is going to, the same thing is going to be done. So the nutrients, like we talked about, the vitamin C, magnesium, B, complexes with additional B6, the fish oil, all the stuff is going to be the same. The diet is going to be the same. The behavioral and lifestyle changes are going to be even more important at this stage, because at that point, if you keep going the way you're going, you will crack eventually. You will go into a full-blown stage of disease if you already haven't done so. So the lifestyle behavior is even at the most important at that point. This is a tough state because a lot of people that consume alcohol and caffeine, they're looking for this calmness and or this stimulation and energy, so they'll even go and begin consuming even more so of those substances. I see a lot of people who do Red Bulls and Monster drinks and garbage and poisons as such that is extremely damaging to the adrenal glands, in general to any endocrine glands. So keep that in mind. That has to be taken out completely and even more so. So address lifestyle and address behavior patterns, to even a high extent. I always tell people it's easier to regulate or regulate yourself willingly than your body having to regulate you. And that's going to happen eventually, whether you like it or not, but you're getting laid out by some illness, okay, that is pretty debilitating. So, take stock now, take responsibility now, because it will be much easier, much cheaper, ultimately in the long run, and much, much more pleasant than you having to have to be regulated by your body by default. When whether you want to or not, it's going to happen. You're going to break down eventually. Somewhere, somehow, something will happen. So this is very important. The hypo state is even more important for you to avoid blue light or any kind of artificial light at least 2 hours before you go to bed, before you go to sleep, I should say. Interacting with sunlight periodically throughout the day is extremely important. The more the better. Basically, if you work in an artificial environment and there's no natural light, make it a point to go outside or get an artificial light. Sunlight the best you can throughout the day. Waking up the same day and go to same time and go to bed the same time during every day is extremely important in that state as well. Basically, the hypo state becomes that much more detrimental to your health, and you have to be that much more careful. Eliminate toxicity from your households. Look at your air fresheners, your laundry detergents, laundry products, personal hygiene products. Okay, all that stuff's got to go because that's one of the most toxic aspects in a regular household. Your cleaning product, switch to natural. You can go to EWG, Environmental Working Group, and from there they have this deep skin database all the way to foods, to hygienes, to you name it, cleaning products, everything that is from the worst all the way down to the best, and try to choose good all the way to best. Switch your stuff because you want to decrease that load of chemicals that are, disrupting your physiology ultimately. If you have infections in your mouth, that's very important to address. People that have cavitations and subliminal underlying infections like root canals, or they might have had root canal, which the infection is even buried deeper in there, that can contribute and worsen the situation really bad. Exposure to electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs, from like routers and cell phones and other sources, that too at this stage can add a lot. Turning off your router at night, completely just unplugging it, turning it off, it's one of the very wise thing to do, especially in general, but especially at this stage when you try to address hypoadrenal states. So another thing is in cooking, avoid using plastics, aluminum. Okay? Use glass, stainless steel, healthy ceramic. If you go to Mamavation, just Google mamavation.com. That woman has done a phenomenal job actually testing with third-party labs products, and she has insane amount of resources of healthy products and orders from worst to best. So choose wisely. All those things have to be addressed. So the diet again is going to be the same. The supplements are going to be the same, and the nutrients, nutrient supplements are going to be the same. But when it comes to the supplements, they're directly for adrenal health. And when it comes to hypo states, it's a different story here. Okay. And this is where, so remember, we had high catecholamines, in the hyper. Now we have low hormones, low hormonal production and deficiency. At this stage, the supportive nutrients, supplements directly for the adrenals are going to be things like adrenal glandulars, okay, glandular extract, the N-acetyltyrosine, licorice, the ginsengs are going to come in, like the Ulotero, American ginseng, the ashwagandha, that still holds true, and the rhodiola, okay. Very important for those. So Ulotero, American ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola, N-acetyltyrosine, and licorice root extract. These things come in. I use a product called Adrenal, again, it's by Designs for Health. So Adrenal is for hypo dysregulation, and the Catecholamines is for hyper. Okay, so don't get those wrong. If you buy that, because it does make a difference. Here, you want to really support the adrenal glands, and these herbs really help with energy and fatigue and help to bring the person back to normalcy. However, this is where people go wrong. A lot of people completely avoid and will go over their head what I just said, and then go buy Adrenal, for example, when they're in hypo state. They start feeling really good for a while, weeks, perhaps even a couple of months, depending, and then they start crashing even more so. Because you're just exhausting your adrenal glands really bad at this point. These herbs are not going to work permanently, long-term, ultimately, like they're supposed to, if you do not address the lifestyle, behavior habits, and your nutrition. It's just simple as that. Okay, so if you think you can, you're delusional. This is, believe me when I tell you, it's much easier for me to sit here, have a short podcast, write out some good supplements, send you guys to my website, and be done with it. Okay, it's much easier, much more fun. But the brutal reality is that you have to address nutrition, you have to address sleep, you have to address lifestyle behavior. You don't address that, nothing's going to change. Okay, people still have the wrong misperception that you can horizontally shift conventional model of medicine into holistic, true holistic, natural health medicine. You can't. Okay, if you have a headache or a migraine, instead of taking drugs, prescription over the counter, people come in and say, well, what can I take naturally for a headache or a migraine? And my answer always going to be nothing. You have to understand and find the cause of your headaches and migraines. And from there, you can fix that with lifestyle, nutrition, behavior modification. And of course, yes, after that, you add supplements. Supplements are just that. Okay, supplement by itself or a protocol will not address a problem. Okay, this is the secondary, if not tertiary aspect of healing, and not the main healing, because or component of the healing. You have to get your body in a position to heal itself, and supplements are just a good tool to add to that healing process, but they are not the only tool. And again, most certainly they'll not cause your body to heal. So that's a very hard concept still for people to understand for some reason. Why, I don't know. But you have to change your mindset that you can have your cake and eat it too. It will never happen. I had numerous people say, well, I am doing, 60, 70, 80% really good. And then, 20, 30, 40%, I have fun. Well, I'm not changing. Well, because you're not going to change, because you're still doing what is damaging your body. So there's no such thing. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It's never going to happen. Okay. Just keep that in mind. So I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Remember, hyper state first, then gets into hypo state. And the hyper is easier to address, a lot faster to address than the hypo. So do some testing, find out where you're at, and then recognize those patterns. But these are the things you can go do. You guys can go to my website, drpnd.com. You can reach out to me. If you have any questions regarding what I spoke about, please do so. I try to answer all my emails and try to answer all my questions if I can. And if there's any way I can help you out, let me know. We offer free consultations and we do free assessments. And if you're struggling with some kind of chronic issue, we would love to be part of your journey back to optimal health. So this concludes our episode for today. And next episode is going to hinge on this one, and we're going to talk about thyroid health and particularly hypothyroidism, which again, that's not a popular condition, very popular condition, a topic that people always ask, have concerns about. So I hope you guys have a blessed day, and until next time.
Thank you for your valuable time and for listening to the Your Health Reclaimed podcast with Dr. PND. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a person you know it can help. If we can help you in any way, or you would like to connect with Dr. PND, please visit drpnd.com. That's drpnd.com.